Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, where we interview people who have and continue to overcome adversity. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with the incredible Jane Powers. Jane is an award-winning international speaker, trainer, and sought-after life and business strategist. She is the author of two incredible books, Speak with Confidence, Sell with Authority, and Revealing the Missing Piece, a book dedicated to helping trauma survivors find ways to navigate trauma, abuse, story, and mind to emerge victoriously. I am honored to introduce you to Mrs. Jane Powers. Jane, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Fabulous now.
Me too. um, Happy to have you on the show. I'm excited to dive into your story and talk about your origin story, where you come from, what you've been through, and how you become so powerful as a speaker, an author, and a positive influence on many of the people around you. Can you tell us a little bit about your origin story and where you come from and how you got to where you are today?
So I hope everyone is ready because it's a lot of years to bring you up to speed. So actually, I'm Jane Powers, and I have lived, I like to say I've lived almost 20 lifetimes. And a friend of mine always says, my God, you started 7 miles behind the starting line. And I never really realized that until I got into business. Entrepreneurship, if you want to learn about yourself, just go into business for yourself, because you become everything you need, or you must become everything you need in order to be successful. Otherwise, you go absolutely crazy, which I'm pretty sure I have a number of times. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. There's 7 of us in the family. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. Now, just so you know, I like to say Chicago because it just sounds cooler than Naperville. I'm from Naperville. I know it's a great city, but it isn't Chicago, and it doesn't sound very cool. But I grew up youngest of 7. I made my way in through life. Unfortunately, had a riddled with abuse. There was no real physical abuse as far as slapping me around. I almost wish there was, because the abuse that I lived through was just copious amounts of sexual abuse by my father, my brothers, my uncle, my brother-in-laws, my grandfather, and you name it. It felt like we were a playground for perpetrators, unfortunately. And my father was the main perpetrator that taught the rest of the family. So for me, it was like bobbing and weaving my way through life. And my mother was very present in the family as an alcoholic. So not really functioning. She was addicted to prescription drugs. And unfortunately, on June 10th, 1976, when I was a young child, she took her last breath and passed away from alcoholism. And that was when I looked at life and went, well, if there is a God, that God has chosen to forget about me, because what God would ever let a kid, or the rest of us in that family, what God would let a kid live through that? And so that day I said, I'm done. It's me against the world. I had little dependence on anyone. And if you can't tell, I'm about 5'4", soaking wet. And I lived my life in the fight mode. No fight, no flight for me, no freeze. It's all about fight. So I have made my way through this world with an awful lot of anger, unfortunately, but fortunately, because it's gotten me where I am today. So I've had a lot of interesting perspectives on things. And if you want to look at it, I've got my book out, Revealing the Missing Piece. That's sort of a tell-all story. But it's funny, Keith, because when I was starting to remember, I was in college and I was in a domestic violent relationship. And I thought, well, this is as good as it gets. This is what I deserve. So I was being knocked around, and I put my fist through a dorm room window and went, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. I can't control the emotions all over the place in me. And that's when I finally went and said, you know what, I've got to figure out why I feel like I'm going crazy. And well, everything came up after that. So that's in a nutshell. There's my life.
Thank you for sharing that. I almost felt like just bawling
Mm.
at the experience that you had. What's been the toughest part of creating a positive life when you come from that experience?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because you get almost tunnel vision to where everyone was a perpetrator, everyone was a victim in my eyes, because I was feeling like a victim still.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't wake up in the morning and go, I get to breathe another day.
Mm-hmm.
I get up in the morning and go, okay, what do we got to do? We got to, it's a survival mindset. And I had to retrain myself because I had the belief if I slowed down, I know this sounds visualized for me, when I would slow down, I felt like I would turn to dust. So it's an interesting process that I went through, that this body kept having to move and the mind had to keep driving. And it was running from and running to. So it was running from my past, so I didn't turn into my past, and running to a dream or a future or a life that gave me much more hope. And it's funny because there's people that are just, I always laugh and I'm like, oh my God, can I borrow your rose-colored glasses? I'm not a rose-colored glasses person. If someone tells me, oh, I grew up in a great family, I'm like, oh, come on. I'm not buying it. If you tell me a little bit about your family, I'll find dysfunction. So I'm a party of one, jaded party of one. Yeah. But what I found is, in order for me to be hopeful, be positive, be more aligned with what my dreams were, I had to stop and reduce my past to a gross inconvenience. Yeah, it sucks what happens to me. And sometimes when I'm telling this story, I'll sort of giggle and laugh because I'm like, man, that sucked. That was not a fun place to be. Now, when I was processing through it, I wouldn't have said, oh, this was a gross inconvenience. I would have killed somebody. That's how emotionally, like my everything was on the outside. But what I had to do was look at, it was a gross inconvenience, and I have a preference for what is and what can be. So I started studying the mind. I started studying Joe Dispenza, all the old greats, Wallace Wattles, listen to Abraham Hicks. I'm not a big Napoleon Hill. The book was too big. I read probably a quarter of it. Well, I hate reading, but I'm looking at my bookshelf. I have the Optimist Creed. I would digest. Oh, you know what? The best, Joseph Murphy. That was a game changer for me. The Power of the Subconscious Mind. That was a game changer for me, because I'm like, wait a minute. I can think something and have a result. Why do I keep thinking about my past? And I grew up in, I worked in the drug and alcohol treatment centers. I created, AA meetings, NA meetings in the prisons. I've done a lot of front lines work. And what I kept hearing people say, I am a victim. I am a survivor. I am an addict. I am. And that keeps reinforcing. So what I realized was, if I keep telling this story, I keep buying into the story, which recreates a future emotional state or results that were from my past. Because, as you look at the subconscious mind, you can't move out of your past without creating a new pattern for the subconscious mind. So I became obsessed with the mind to be able to change the narrative, change the story, change the outcome. And I had a theme that everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. And I'll tell you, I will hit walls because I'll be like, that's the magic bullet. And I'll be like, oh, because here's the truth. Unfortunately, people will always let us down.
Yeah.
They don't mean to. I let people down. I don't mean to, but I'm human. We're all human. And what we desire in someone, we want to make that someone that desire. Like, I'm big on in my past relationships. I'm like, well, I'm not sure I like how you're feeling at the, and I tried to mold them into what worked for me.
Mm,
And most of it is to be safe and secure and all that. But
mm,
just going back to your question, the way that I had to change the narrative. I had to change and tell a more empowering story. Yes, it was a gross inconvenience. And here's what people say. Is there any part of you grateful for what happened because it made you who you are today?
mm,
I don't know.
mm-hmm.
What if that didn't happen and
Yeah.
I was like somebody like so amazingly powerful and a world leader? Maybe I could have, I don't know. Or what if I was sitting behind a computer? I mean, that for me, that would be like a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know what I mean? It's like people
Yeah.
say, well, did it make you who you are?
Right.
I don't know, because I didn't get a chance to be anybody else.
Right. Yeah. We don't get to run those two stories in parallel to see what happens.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you communicating about the subconscious mind and changing the narrative and addressing patterns. What were some of the patterns that you can recall that really shifted your mindset?
Oh, huge. So I grew up being told I was fat, dumb, and stupid. And I was about this big around. I don't know if I don't know if I was stupid. I was too tired because I'd stay. Part of my survivor mechanism is I would stay awake until the sun came up, because I knew something, when the lights went out, darkness came, bad things happened. So I'd stay awake. I'd fall asleep when the sun came up. So there were times I was only getting a matter of, hours of sleep. I'd go to school and have to learn. And my brain was so full. You can't have a deer out in the woods learning math, and then a lion comes after it, and it's still in its flight mode saying, okay, 5 + 5 is 10. It can't do that, right? So I was the prey animal trying to do math and reading at the same time. I was calculating, how do I live through another night? So, oh shoot, I forgot your question. I got off on my lovely tangent of
I think it's beautiful though, because we were talking about patterns and what were some of the patterns
Oh,
that
yes.
you shifted into that
Yes.
really helped you change. But then you captivated me with the deer in the headlights and the lion that just comes out, and I just I went with it. I'm like, hey, wherever this is going.
Welcome to Nat Geo. Here we are. So when my sister right above me, chubby, she had eating disorder, and she would consistently fat, dumb, and stupid. She called me fat, dumb, and stupid. So anytime a spelling bee would start, I'd be like, I'm the dumb kid. I don't know how to spell anything. I'd be the first one to sit down. When I wanted to go to college, I started talking to my father. Remember, my mother had passed, so I had no one else to talk to. Went to my dad and I said, I want to be an attorney. I thought, oh, could you not see me in a courtroom? Objection. I'd be so awesome. Yeah. And he said to me, oh, that's for smart kids. And you are not that smart. You actually can be dumb. But you're an athlete. Go be a PE major. And so I said, oh, okay, I must not have enough in me. So much of the programming was around, I'm not enough, not smart enough, not tall enough, not skinny enough, not whatever. So not enough. And the other pattern that I find to this day, and a lot of people look, and Keith, I've created 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. I have a 7-figure coaching business. Yeah. Whoop-de-doo. What's it all mean? It means if I can do it, anyone can freaking do it, because I had a belief that I couldn't do any of it. And I look, and part of what I consistently would drive and outperform others, part of my competitive edge is what would get me there. But in my mind, it was all about, I need more success, more money, more assets, for security reasons. And here's what I've reduced it down over the last couple of few years, because the pandemic has put everything on hold for everyone to a certain degree. Yeah. And sometimes all you have is you to listen to in isolation.
Right.
And so I started to look at my addiction to more than.
Mm.
And I realized, so my mother passed away, and my father, who I'm sure had tons and tons of mistresses at that time, when she passed away, he took her wallet
Mm-hmm.
and would put $200 in it on the desk in the kitchen. And that money was to last for groceries and a couple of weeks. Well, my sister, drug addict, would steal the money in there. And I, rule follower, I would watch the money and think, well, I can't take money out of there to safeguard for food and groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And the money would continue to go down. And I didn't know my dad would, travel weeks on end. And I started to feel a fear of, I'm going to starve to death. I'm not going to have, all these things that I needed, my necessities of living. And I replaced the security of my mother, drunk or not. She was home every day.
Mm-hmm.
I replaced the security of my mom with the security of the wallet, which represented money, which was always mysteriously going away. So this brain of mine, I believed, anchored in that if you pack the wallet full, you don't have to worry about security. So the greatest work for me has been knowing, a trust and knowing I am always taken care of. And if you say, Keith, okay, it sounds like you may have been broke one day. Never. I have never been broke. I have felt broke. I've been broken. But my greatest concern was always, I'm going to be living in a big refrigerator box down at the park. And so the other one is, so not enoughism, security issues. And I have what I call fat eyes, because I was told I was fat all my life. I must have been missing something. So now I look and I'm like, oh, there's the fat. So I work consistently, and I work on being awake. Like that's my number one priority. Notice what I'm noticing, pay attention to what I'm paying attention to, because every single thing that comes to me is in me.
What do you mean by that?
Every single thing I see in the world is a reflection of my thinking. If I'm thinking, God, I'm cranky, I'm going to run into 4,000 cranky people.
Yeah.
Or if there's something I am needing to heal in myself, I'll start encountering it in the world. And I'm like, how does this represent me? What in me needs to be healed, needs to be reprogrammed, needs to have a better story told about it, or needs to forgive? There's something going on. If the world is reflecting to you something you don't like, something that makes you sad, mad, glad, doesn't matter. Everything outside of you represents what's inside of you.
I want to take a turn really quick and ask you this question about, obviously you've been able to break through some significant challenges, and we haven't even talked about the different job, like you've been through a lot of different pivots and careers and things like that. One of the things I hear is that, well, if Jane can do it, you can do it. Right? Sometimes people see people that have succeeded and broke through things, and they use them as the reason why there's not a problem to address, or maybe they don't have the right level of empathy for somebody that they should have, because, maybe someone hasn't figured out the puzzle to their life in terms of breaking through adversity, abuse, drug addiction, whatever that may be. Like, what is your message to people who are sitting on the outside, seeing someone that's struggling through maybe some of the things that you experienced as a child growing up?
There's two perspectives as you were asking that. There's a couple of things that come to my mind. Most people live in a, it's medically induced coma. I'm thinking a self-induced coma, because what they do is they've got the something, There's always something, I promise you. I don't care who you are. There's always something in you that is going to seek to find more. A bigger job, a bigger promotion, the bigger bank account, a bigger love, bigger whatever. And everyone's seeking more. If they're not, they've fallen asleep. They've settled. I see this mostly in relationships.
Okay.
I see this a ton in relationships and government positions. I know that seems weird, but right? When they're working for the government, I had a client who was like, oh no, I got to wait for my pension. They're waiting out. They're waiting it out. Most relationships wait it out. I have been in 3 long-term relationships, finally found my true relationship, but consistently had settled. I thought, well, it's 80% good. The problem with being 80% good is at some point that 20% becomes the biggest percentage. And then you're thinking, oh my God, this 20% is engulfing my life. That happens in positions at work. It happens in your career. It happens in everything you do. And if it doesn't, I believe people are not awake to what needs to be healed. So when you see others, it truly is, you said I had career adjustments. I've had 25 and a half career adjustments, and some were voluntary and some were involuntary. We talked about this, Keith. I have terrible authority figure issues. I swear I will challenge anyone, not just because, sometimes just because. Am I right? No, not always. But I just don't tell me what to do. Anyhow, so I've had 25 and a half career adjustments, prison, drug and alcohol treatment centers, a counselor for sexual abuse, interventions, you name it. I was working the front lines. And we would go and do interventions. I'm telling you, there'd be a dude with a needle in his arm, laying on the curb, foaming at the mouth, no money, no home, no family, no support, no nothing. They're going to code out. And you're saying, we can get you help. And they go, oh, today is not good for me. And you're thinking, dude, you will not be here tomorrow. Like tomorrow, you're done today. And that just goes to show, I had a very dear friend a number of years ago. Gosh, I think it's been a very long time. She just started drinking. Drinking, eating disorder. Just hammering. In 4.5 years, she was literally kicked out of treatment centers, in the hospital. And when I talked to her, I said, Lori, you're going to be dead in 2 weeks if you don't knock this shit out. You're going to be dead. I promise you, because it has got you. And her response to me was, no, I got it this time. Right when I hear that, I'm like, nope, she's a goner. And guess what? This is terrible. 2 weeks to the time that I said, you will be dead, she died. She ended up killing herself through eating disorder and alcoholism. In only 4.5 years, she was only 38. That's a serious problem. Now, are there people running around out there that you go, oh, life looks so great for you. You look good. Yes, you can see those individuals. There's something always, and it doesn't mean you have to be like white knuckling your life, but there's something always looking for more in you. So if you see someone that, or you have a loved one that is circling the drain, I like to use the broken record. Whenever we would do an intervention, it was a broken record. Whenever we would do anything at the prison, anything, because most people that are in a cycle, the way to break the cycle is, for my opinion, is to frustrate them, is to use the same line. So I appreciate you sharing. My limit is this. My limit is, if you're going to drink, you don't get to stay in the room with me. That's my limit. That's my limit. Oh no, and they make a lot of noise. And then you go, I appreciate you sharing, but my limit is, it's a broken record. And they start to get frustrated. The individual starts to get frustrated. And here's a good example. I've got a very dear friend who is a victim. Everything. Oh, the world is doing this to me. COVID did this to me. The presidents, did this to me. everything is why me and what has life done to me. And that is a perpetual cycle. And that's an individual that I have confronted so directly to say, how long are you going to be victim? Oh no, I'm going to stop this one. But then they find a new pattern. Sometimes, and I hate to say this, sometimes you just have to go, as long as you're being a victim, I can't hear your stories because they actually are disempowering me. So communication for me is the number one healing mechanism on planet Earth. Whether you are tattling on yourself, I had to do it all the time. I grew up in the craziest family. My God, they were so manipulative, and I could manipulate like crazy. And I'd be like, uh-oh, I think I'm in the middle of manipulation. And I would say, okay, I'm going to just tell you, I said that because then I wanted this reaction from you. And as long as I got that reaction from you, I would feel this. So that was really screwed up. I apologize. What I really need to say is, can you give me a hug? Like, it's simple communication, but tattling on yourself is one of the greatest stoppers of crazy making.
I hear this word communication. And what if you are communicating? Everyone's communicating, right? But they're not connecting, or they're not but there's a lack of understanding.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. I can go into all the different books, right? The Language of Love, the Conversations with God, I think it is. But right, there's that conversation, there's that saying, and I think I'm the worst. I'll quote something and I'll be like, go read this. I don't know who said it. I just like it. There is, every expression is a cry for love or an expression of love. So I tend to get louder. And what my louder is saying is, do you love me? And I have to stop and go, okay, why am what's getting amped up in me?
Yeah.
But if someone isn't saying, I love you and I want to help you, then they're saying, do you love me? But most of the time we live in shame. We live in guilt. We live in societal standards and norms. You don't say, you don't ask, there's so many things that we have been set up to fail that, I mean, in my family, you kept the secret. You made it look good. You made us look good as a family, or there was hell to pay. So I'd go back after I remembered, because I hadn't remembered my abuse. I went back, and when I started having memories, I went back and interviewed my coaches and my teachers. And I started asking, what kind of kid was I? I asked my friends from high school, what kind of friend was I? And it was interesting to see. I was always smiling. I looked at my report cards. Oh, Jane is always smiling. Sometimes seems very distracted. And I'm like, why didn't anybody ask me, what the heck am I thinking about? I would go back, and then I would disclose to my coaches and teachers that I had been living through an inordinate amount of sexual abuse. And they were like, we would never have known. Nobody ever asked. I was being molested by one of my teachers. I thought I was in a relationship with him because that was what I did. That was my life. He was, older than me, obviously, but my freshman to junior year, I was being molested by a teacher, and I thought I was in a relationship, and people knew that I was hanging out with this teacher, and no one ever said anything. So I look and I think there's standards that we operate. And then some people are like, no, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. And we do that to ourselves. Oh, you'll be fine. Just leave it alone. Get over it. He'll change. She'll change. You'll change. The job will change. Change not my circumstances. Change me. I have said that for years and years. I say, change not my circumstances. When shit is flying, it's okay. I will change within that. If I change, my circumstances change. If I'm a victim to my environment, if I take power over that, here's a great example. I do some dog training, mostly now with my own.
Yeah.
But I watch Cesar Millan. the dog whisperer. He is like, if you want to know how to run your life, run your kids, watch how he trains dogs, because it's about being a pack leader. There's no question that I am a pack leader. There's no question. I'll tell you where I learned this, Keith. You're going to like this. You're going to like this. I learned it from playing basketball with men. I'm not kidding you. Playing basketball with men. I go down to the Y out in the Chicagoland area. I'd walk in, and I told you I'm 5'4", soaking wet, but I can play. I got game. Yeah. And I was the only woman in the gym. And at first they pushed me around, and I'd go home and I'd get in my car and I'd actually cry. I'd be like, son of a go. And I get so mad. And I thought, okay, I read this book, Women's Reality. It's an old book, Women's Reality. Women who are listening to this show, please.
Is that an oxymoron?
Real nice. But women, if you read that book, beware, you will hate men for about a month. Like, you'll read that and you'll be like, oh, now I know. Now I know. I kept getting more and more angry. Yeah. So I go in, play basketball with men. Here's the trick about men. I don't know. They say they're from Venus and Mars. I don't know the planet. So I go to this. Here's the truth of what I understand. Men don't truly know how to partner. They're either one up or one down. They're either alpha or they're following. So I'd always go in and say, hey, can't we all play nice together? And I try to partner, and they're all like, lifting their legs on each other, that you're like having the whole, masculine thing. And I went in and I thought, okay, I'm going to try something. How would I go one up? How would I control this? It took me one day in that gym, and there's 4 courts. I'm running the whole gym.
Yeah.
From that point forward, I'm running the whole gym. And somebody else would come in and they'd be like, trying to posture, and they're like, ask Jane. Like, no one would take control. Yeah. And I started to realize, if I find my voice, please, this is the motto that I live by. Find your voice, find your power. In your power, you can do anything. The key to finding your voice is to find your truth and not apologize for it. See, we're in this day and age where a lot of people are saying, well, I'm not, do business like a man. I do not know how to do much of anything like a man. I honestly don't. But what I know is my unique power has a unique expression. Everyone has their own unique expression of their truth. My truth comes, I don't have a filter. Whatever I think and feel, it comes burping out of my mouth. But that has been the factor that has saved my life, because everything was kept inside. I meet a lot of people that, I won't say anything. No, you got to say something. Otherwise, you carry that burden.
Yeah.
You got to be able to step out into finding your voice. But I believe in fair communication. Stay in the I statement. I feel, I am, I need, I desire. And anytime you start to unfair fight, name calling, dropping bombs, F bombs, S bombs, B bombs, doesn't matter. That, to me, that's like out of bounds. Yeah. Like, that's penalty box, sit and cool down. Truth be told, that's a lot of times why I worked myself out of jobs, because I would communicate very clearly. Nobody wants that. Yeah. They really don't. Yeah. I have my friends go, do you have to share everything? And I'm like, I do.
What's the most difficult lesson you've had to learn?
The most difficult lesson, it's always about getting out of my own way. It's always about getting out of my own way and stop telling crappy stories about myself. It truly, healing is a selfishly motivated situation. It's all about us. It's all about who are we? What do we need to do? It's never about anyone else. It's always about our own selfish need. And then that makes the world a better place. If finally I stop being so angry, as I stopped being so angry, I was a whole lot nicer, a whole lot more fun, a whole lot more giving. The world became a better place. And it's truly about again, I go back to it's about the shame. It's about the shame of or being different or worrying about what people think of you. I worry about if people like me or not. I just don't care if they like me or not. And it just goes down to be the best version of you, but we can't if we're living according to our past. Most of our past is unconscious to us. It's driving the bus. The unconscious mind, I'm telling you, one of the greatest books I read by Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is one of the best books. A lot of what I write in my book, Revealing the Missing Piece, is the hack, the shortcut to healing. Keith, you would have loved every time I'd go into therapy, because I don't like to spend money, but I knew I had to go to therapy.
You don't like to spend money?
Oh, I hate spending money.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll once I make a ton of money, then I'll spend a little money. I'm just, I like to save like that. But I'd go into therapy and I'd be like, if I did not come out of there soaking wet, wrung out, have wrenched my guts with emotion, I didn't feel I got my money's worth.
Oh, wow.
If I would have known what I know today, if I would have known that back then, I would have been like, I'm not diving that deep into this story, because it re-anchors the cellular memory of everything. I mean, and here's the dynamic: sexual abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical, it doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
It takes on an overarching theme of either I'm not enough, there's something innately flawed in me, there's something wrong with me. And quite frankly, since I put my book out, I have more men coming to me than I do women that are saying, I live by that code. There's a code of survivorship. There's a code that they live by, that we live by, that can it can wreak havoc in our system.
Yeah.
It can wreak havoc in our system. If we think a certain thought, we're like, oh, that's related to my past, that I should be ashamed of that thought. It can do such a number on us that if we stand in who we are, we're not hurting someone else, we're not hurting ourselves, then live your life according to your rules, not your past story or what religion tells you or what the neighbors tell you or what society or the paper or the news or the politics, whatever it is. Decide how you choose to live, and you write the narrative, you write the story of what it's going to look like and as you go. And a lot of times we're like, I used to say, well, if you had a past like mine, you too would feel this way. Oh, God, could we feel any more sorry for ourselves? Yeah, I had a crappy past, but it doesn't need to be in today. It does not need to be today's world. And a lot of times we make it look like that. We worry about what the world thinks of us, and we don't stand in what do I desire. And you see it more and more with this generation. We were just having a conversation last night. MASH came on the TV, right? MASH.
Wow.
My God. Well, it was right after Andy Griffith. Well, who doesn't love Andy? Come on. And so you watch MASH. Do you remember in MASH? Oh, darn it. I just blanked on the guy's name, who was actually a cross-dresser. Not Radar, but the other one.
Full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, whenever MASH came on, I changed the channel. So I don't know. I have no idea.
Yes, there was the cross-dresser on there. He would dress up like a woman, right? That was like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And nobody went, oh my God, get that off. How dare them? Now we look at kids in society, they're pan, cis, bi, poly, trans, blah, blah. I don't even know. There's so many titles that we live by that everyone's seeking an identity. Everyone's seeking, where do I fit in? And what I say is, make the world fit into you. You determine how you live and make the world respond accordingly.
I love that. I appreciate that. As we close out, I give every guest an opportunity to teach 3 principles that they want to leave with our audience. And that could be about, how to live a better life or how to break through challenges. This one specifically, though, that I want to leave with our audience is how do you get back up after you have maybe had success and gone through, broke through your previous challenges and then you hit a wall again? I think everyone, there's these journeys that we go on in life, right? Where we break through one challenge and then, we meet a new one, and we hit that wall and maybe it's difficult to get back up. So what is your advice, maybe a few lessons that you can leave
Yeah.
with our listeners on getting back in the game and breaking through another challenge?
I would love to say, whew, you got through that one. You're good. No, all I'm going to tell you is, and for most of you, I have a handful of years under my belt, and I have hit more walls. I've created, I told you this, I created 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. I promise you, I'm not like a genius, but just I'm sort of the accidental millionaire where I'm like, oh, let's try this. And then I go 120 miles an hour and then 832,000 miles an hour and I achieve it. And I go, ooh. And what keeps happening every time, every career, everything I do, I run smack dab into a wall. Always, always. So what I would like to say is get used to it. Get used to it. If you watch, oh my God, watch this show, or it's a YouTube video, Danny, I think it's Danny Daycare. But after that, you'll see Danny's backyard. This guy is a trick bike rider.
Okay.
He will go up ramps, jump up onto like pallets, 10 feet high, and you'll see him. The dude falls.
Yeah.
He's like, boom. And then he laughs. He gets back up. I fall once and I'd be like, ow, ow. I'd cry and never do it again. But he keeps going. But I'm honestly watch that and you'll look and you'll go, oh my God, just keep getting back up.
Yeah.
And the difference is, here's a great example. I'm a biker. I'm a mountain biker, road biker. I do all sports. I play ice hockey, everything. But when I'm mountain biking, if I hit a part that either I have challenges getting up and over, whatever it is, I will stop and ask myself, what was I just thinking? What was I just thinking? Because what I was just thinking dictates what happens. If something happens in your world, stop and ask the question, what story have I been telling? How did I see that story turning out? And how do I change it? So it's always about self-diagnosis. It's about stopping the madness of the hamsters running overtime in our brain, keeping us from having a rational thought, because we'll get hijacked by the chemicals in our brain. The minute we hit a stress, something, pressure, our brain kicks into overdrive. Chemicals keep the reality, keep the truth from being revealed. So I'll give a formula. I made this formula up and happy to, to provide it for you, Keith. You can give to your listeners. It's the STOP formula.
Okay.
The STOP formula, S, state your preference. I need more money. I need more. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. I need more money. Well, that comes from a place of lack.
Yeah.
But if you state your preference, I prefer having a steady stream of wealth come to me easily and effortlessly. That's my preference. Do I have it? Son of a gun. I don't have enough money. I don't have money. The mind will take you back. It'll hijack you back to the norm, what you've always said. So state your preference. I would prefer to have a steady stream of wealth. T is trigger the imagination. What would it look like? Get curious. What would it look like? That'd be awesome. I'd love to have another house. I'd love to have a rental property. I'd love to invest. I'd love to have, a new car, new bike, whatever it is. Trigger the imagination, open to possibility. None of us are, there's a lot of people that are not open to the possibility. So I go to bed at night, I am receiving now, I'm receiving all the wealth I possibly can have. So you just have to affirm it. Don't worry about the mind and the body believing it. You can't look in the mirror and go, doggone it, I am skinny. And you're like, I'm a fat toad. Doesn't work. But when you go to bed at night, you can constantly, I say, I live an unlimited life. I am open to an unlimited life.
Mm-hmm.
Wealth comes to me easily, effortlessly, endlessly, and immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that I find myself falling asleep to those words.
Mm-hmm.
And so open to possibility. P, this is what everyone misses. Put it into action.
Mm-hmm.
People want to sit and meditate and cry and listen to terrible music and bitch at everybody else, fight with their spouse. Instead of saying action is what puts you into it puts you into the momentum.
Yeah.
Once you get momentum, I don't care if it's in the wrong direction, it's momentum.
Yeah.
Change directions.
Yep.
But many times people feel defeated, hopeless, helpless. They want to shut everything off and they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens? They get depressed or blue or whatever. If you feel down, think of revenge. Blame somebody for something. Blame that driver on the road. It'll make you feel so empowered.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling down, I'm like, that son of a bitch. It will be immediate. I'm like, okay, and I'm back. So,
yes.
best thing you can do, just think vengeance.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be a podcast that I listen to 100,000 times. The last 2 minutes. If you're feeling down, think of revenge. Yes.
That's it. Because it jacks you up. You get like all amped up. Yeah. And then go do something to save your story. Tell a more empowering story. But don't bypass the feelings. You got to feel the feelings and then it's always the and then, but you got to recognize and then.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for pouring your heart out on today's podcast. We'll have to do it again at some point. There's so much that we didn't talk about, from athletics to careers and things like that. But it's been amazing. You have made my day and my week and my month. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you act like you're signing off and you can't get rid of me now.
Well, we're signing off.
Signing off, but I'm stalking you, buddy.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'll add all your contact information to the show notes and look forward to having another conversation.
Excellent.
Awesome. Have a great day.